You know, there was a time when movies didn't need cinematic universes. They didn't need shared timelines. They didn't need 45 Easter eggs connecting the next sequel. All they needed was a movie star. In the 1980s and 1990s, action movies were powered by some of the biggest personalities Hollywood has ever seen. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, Sylvester Stallone, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Harrison Ford, actors whose name could sell a movie ticket on their own. And the films they made during that era weren't just action movies, they defined what the blockbuster movie should look like. So tonight, we're looking at 10 action films that perfectly capture the moment when movie stars ruled Hollywood. So pop that tape in, I got you, let's go do this. Welcome back to AVA Pop Culture, where we talk about movies that shaped us, the movies that made us, the VHS era, the cable era, and the golden age of blockbuster filmmaking. And if you grew up in the 80s or 90s like I did, you probably remember something about action movies at that time. They felt larger than life. And these 10 movies capture that era perfectly.
The captain needs to see you on the flight deck right away.
Gentlemen, just received this.
Flight 611, you're about to be taken over by posse combatants.
Drop Zone. We're starting with a movie here that might be one of the most underrated action films and lesser talked about films of the 90s. Drop Zone, starring Wesley Snipes. And now, if you look at action cinema history, then the early 90s were full of movies that tried to take a simple concept and build an entire action spectacle around it. And Drop Zone's concept is pretty fantastic. Skydiving criminals. That's the movie. Wesley Snipes plays a U.S. Marshal hunting down a group of criminals who use skydiving to pull off high-tech heists, which means the movie is packed with practical aerial stunt work. And this is in the pre-CGI heavy era, so a lot of the skydiving scenes were actually performed by real stunt professionals. The result is a movie that feels incredibly physical, and it's also a reminder that 90s action boom created space for mid-budget thrill rides that studios rarely ever make today because they don't have the physical media windows and the long theatrical runs to recoup the money. But in the 90s and the 80s, they weren't worried about that, so we get awesome movies driven by stars like Wesley Snipes in Drop Zone. And then there is 1993's Hard Target.
What kind of a name is Chance?
My mama took one.
This is the movie that introduced a lot of American audiences to the director who would become legendary. That is John Woo. Hard Target was Woo's first Hollywood film, and you know it. If you see it, you know the John Woo style. You know exactly what that's going to mean. It's going to mean slow motions. It's going to mean dual pistols, explosions, and enough flying doves to populate an entire bird sanctuary in this. The film stars Jean-Claude Van Damme, who at one point had become one of the biggest martial arts stars in the world thanks to movies like Bloodsport and Cannon Films and things like that. But the premise of this one is pure exploitation cinema. It takes an old story, The Most Dangerous Hunt, where you have wealthy hunters who are paying to hunt human targets in New Orleans, which gives John Woo the perfect excuse to stage some absolutely outrageous action sequences. Everything from motorcycle chases to shotgun battles, exploding buildings. Hard Target is basically a collision between Hong Kong action cinema and Hollywood spectacle, with Van Damme being the perfect actor in the martial arts area to bridge that gap. And it helped establish John Woo as one of the most influential action directors of the 1990s. Hard Target, an awesome movie. Check it out. And then we have some overlooked films that have overwhelming star power, like 1989's Tango and Cash. And few movies out there capture the spirit of the late 80s like Tango and Cash. It's pure excess in every single way. The movie pairs Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell, two of my favorite actors ever and two of the biggest stars in the history of Hollywood, as rival cops who are framed for murder and forced to work together, which leads to about 2 hours of explosions, one-liners, increasingly ridiculous action sequences that keep building over the top. And the production of this film was actually pretty chaotic. Multiple directors were involved. The script was constantly being rewritten. You had Stallone and you had Kurt Russell putting their efforts into trying to get the script just right. But in it, it just has so much of that awesome energy just fueled by star power. Stallone plays a polished sort of Armani suit wearing detective, and Russell plays the rough, tough, wisecracking street cop sort of everyman. And the two actors have incredible chemistry in this movie. It's ridiculous, it's over the top, and it's exactly the kind of movie that dominated VHS rentals and late night cable forever. So much fun, often overlooked even with two of the biggest stars ever in it, Tango and Cash. Now for the next one, we step back to the early 80s to 1982 for 48 Hours. This one is awesome, and it really helped invent the entire buddy cop genre. This movie teamed Nick Nolte, who was in his heyday at the time, with Eddie Murphy, and like I said, it basically became the blueprint for the modern buddy cop action film. And when I say these two were at different points, I mean, Nick Nolte was established and in his heyday. Eddie Murphy was young, and when I say young, I believe he was 19 years old when they filmed 48 Hours. He was a young comedian fresh off his breakout success in Saturday Night Live, and the film turned him into a megastar almost overnight. And the real magic comes in here from Walter Hill, who was smart enough to put Nolte and Murphy together and let them run, because their chemistry just sets the screen on fire. You can always count on Walter Hill to deliver a grounded, gritty, urban tone that feels very realistic. And then the magic of the chemistry between Nolte and Murphy, constantly arguing, the culture clash between the characters, a mix of humor and action. Nearly every buddy cop movie that followed owes at least something to 48 Hours, Nolte, Murphy, and Walter Hill. This one is a perfect star vehicle that not only had a star, but created a star. 48 Hours. Next up, we change it just a little and get a little sci-fi thriller edge to these star-driven blockbusters with 1981's Escape from New York. This is one of the coolest action heroes ever in this movie that was created by John Carpenter and Kurt Russell. You've got Snake Plissken, and John Carpenter's Escape from New York introduced audiences to Kurt Russell as an anti-hero who just became iconic as Snake Plissken. And the film is set in a dystopian future where Manhattan has become a massive prison, and when the president's plane crashes inside the city prison, Snake Plissken is sent in to rescue him. But what makes the movie special isn't just the premise, it's the tone of the film, because Carpenter captures a world that feels really dangerous, gritty, lived in, and completely unpredictable. And Kurt Russell, of course, delivers one of his most memorable performances in action movies in the decade as Snake Plissken, who isn't a traditional hero at all because he's cynical, he's sarcastic, he's sort of that early model for the anti-hero, and he's clearly not really interested in saving the world, but you root for him anyway, and all of his just mannerisms, his presence is exactly why audiences loved him. It was pure star power on display in John Carpenter's Escape from New York. Now, jumping from the early 80s to the late 90s to maybe my favorite actor ever with his star pushing this movie, it's 1997's Air Force One.
Get off my plane.
Now, you got to imagine the pitch meeting on Air Force One, because I'm sitting there thinking about it as I'm thinking about this movie, and I'm thinking, they walked into this pitch meeting and they said, what if we take Harrison Ford and make him the president of the United States. And the studio execs are like, yeah, I'm with you. That all sounds good. And then we make him an action hero by turning the movie into Die Hard on a plane. And that's basically what you get with Air Force One, because Harrison Ford plays President James Marshall, whose plane is hijacked by terrorists, and instead of negotiating, he fights back. The film became one of the biggest action movie hits of the late 1990s, and it perfectly captured the mass appeal that has gone on for generations with Harrison Ford as an action star. Ford always brought a sense of realism to his characters, even Indiana Jones and Han Solo in these fantastical adventures and worlds. He was never a superhuman fighter. He was a guy who was determined to be the hero trying to survive impossible situations and help other people, which made the action feel more grounded. And when Harrison Ford, as the president, punches a terrorist and says, "Get off my plane," it is instantly one of the most famous lines in action movie history, definitely of the decade, and shows the star power of Harrison Ford. Air Force One, you better get it. I love that movie. It comes in at number 5. And at number 4, we go to a sequel, because all of these movies in this original trilogy lived in the 80s and 90s, but I love 1995's Die Hard with a Vengeance. And this one has a lot of star power, because you have Bruce Willis, who's a huge action star, but you have Samuel L. Jackson, who became a big star, and you have great villains in this thing with Jeremy Irons, big star, coming off of doing The Lion King, the voice of Scar. You had star power in this. You also had John McTiernan behind Die Hard in this, directing. I mean, you had everything that you want from this movie, and the Die Hard series really helped redefine action films anyway. And the third one in the franchise might be the smartest one in terms of script writing. Not the best script or the tightest script, that's Die Hard 1. But this time, Bruce Willis's John McClane is paired with Samuel L. Jackson, creating another fantastic buddy dynamic. And instead of a single location like Nakatomi Plaza, the film expands the action all the way across New York City and beyond, which gives the director John McTiernan a chance to stage some incredible set pieces. You've got bomb puzzles, you've got riddles, taxi chases, explosive finale, and of course the chemistry between the huge stars Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson is phenomenal. The result is one of the most entertaining star-driven action movies of the entire 1990s. Die Hard with a Vengeance, a great sequel. It comes in at number 4.
I'll do my best.
Your best? Losers always whine about their best. Winners go home and the prom queen.
The Rock. No, I'm not talking about Dwayne Johnson. I'm talking about the 1996 film that you have to love, because you want to talk about star power. You've got Nicolas Cage in here, and you have Sean Connery. And listen, very few movies had the energy in the 1990s like The Rock did. The film teamed Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage together, so there's your blockbuster star power. And the story is about rogue Marines seizing Alcatraz Island. The director is Michael Bay, who is known for his big action, but he was just beginning his rise at that time to becoming one of Hollywood's most recognizable action filmmakers. And the movie delivers exactly what you would expect. Huge explosions, relentless pacing, one-liners, memorable dialogue about prom queens and winners, wildly entertaining performances. But what really makes The Rock memorable is the chemistry, again, between the huge stars, Cage and Connery. Connery plays a mysterious former British spy, which is not a leap for James Bond. Cage plays an FBI chemical weapons expert who has absolutely no idea how he has ended up in the middle of this military assault, so to speak. And their partnership gives the movie humor and intensity to go along with all the crazy action. It is so much fun to watch. How can you not just love the star power and the action of The Rock? Now, coming in at number 2 on the list is where things get just a little bit interesting with 1997's Starship Troopers. Because Starship Troopers was both a massive action spectacle and a brilliant piece of satire done by none other than one of my favorite directors, Paul Verhoeven, the same filmmaker behind RoboCop, Total Recall. The movie tells the story of humanity's war against a giant alien insect race. But Verhoeven wasn't just making a sci-fi action film. He was also satirizing militarism, propaganda, all that kind of stuff, which means the movie works on multiple levels. On the surface, you can watch it just like that and is a huge sci-fi war film packed with special effects, battle scenes, great practical effects. But underneath that, there's a clever commentary on media manipulation, which he was really into, and all that kind of stuff. And over time, Starship Troopers has become one of the most respected cult classics of the 90s, and it still had some star power. You had Michael Ironside in this movie. You had Casper Van Dien, who was very popular for a while. You had Denise Richards. You had Neil Patrick Harris. You still had your star power in this film, and it is so much fun to watch. Endlessly rewatchable. The definition of 80s or 90s excess when it comes to action driven by stars in a blockbuster format. Starship Troopers. And when I sat down to make this list, there was no question to me what number 1 was going to be. And it's another Paul Verhoeven film, and it pairs him up with maybe the biggest star of the 80s and 90s, at least one of the two, Arnold Schwarzenegger with Total Recall. Total Recall is number 1 for a lot of reasons. And if you want to understand the peak of the action star era and blockbusters, look no further than this movie. Because without Arnold and Verhoeven, the concept of this movie is very tough and may not sell, but with them, it became a huge blockbuster, millions of dollars, endlessly played on VHS and TV. Arnold Schwarzenegger was already one of the biggest stars on the planet when this movie was released, but Total Recall took things to another level. My man, the Dirty Dutchman, Paul Verhoeven, directing this film with a wild blend of science fiction and psychological mystery, and again, plenty of his satire and loads of action. The story follows a construction worker who discovers his memories may have been artificially implanted, which leads him to Mars and into a conspiracy that blurs the line between reality and fantasy. And the movie is packed with unforgettable imagery. You've got mutant rebels, explosive actions, and one of the best, most famous practical effects sequences of the era. Total Recall is bold, violent, sexual, weird, over the top. It's got Sharon Stone in it as well. Michael Ironside again, Ronnie Cox. You have a lot of big recognizable actors in here, led by the biggest star of them all, Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is what made this movie so unforgettable and made Arnold the ultimate action star of the 80s and 90s. Him and Stallone forever linked there. They are the icons, and Total Recall is right there at the top. So entertaining to this day. It comes in at number 1. The truth is, the action movies of the 80s and 90s were not just about big explosions and exploitations and cheese the way we remember them sometimes. They were really about the stars, actors who could carry an entire movie on their names and their personality and charisma. Studios built entire films around them, and audiences showed up just to watch them. And for over 2 decades, that formula created some of the most entertaining movies ever made. And honestly, it's an era of Hollywood that still feels like it's going to be pretty hard to ever top. So now I'm curious, what action star defined this era, the 80s and 90s for you? Arnold, Stallone, Willis, Van Damme? Let me know in the comments. For me, Arnold and Stallone are just, they're tied at the top. I don't see how you put one above the other. They're just iconic to that time frame. But I want to know what you think, so let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And if you want to help support what we're doing here a little more, you can join my Patreon. The link is always in the description. You'll get your name and lights on every single video, behind the scenes looks at my filmmaking, special members only videos, deep dives into physical media, and so much more. And everything helps the channel, and I really do appreciate it. But until next time, be kind, rewind like always. This is Chase with AV Pop Culture, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye. I know.